It's The Journey with drug and alcohol attorney Mark G. Astor.
All right, everybody, welcome to the latest edition of The Journey, as seen on Facebook Live, and I'm really excited to have as my very special guest here today, a fellow member of the bar, well, that wasn't always the case, Joshua Shane Horton. Joshua, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you having me.
I've wanted to get you on the show for a long time because I think that you're such an inspirational. I mean, I use the word inspirational. I think that's really not doing your story justice, quite frankly. It's I think miraculous is maybe the more appropriate word, because I mean, you're a practicing lawyer now, but that way back when, I mean, that wasn't always the case. And so I think what I was hoping to sort of to do by having you on the show is maybe motivate some people so they understand that, you know, if you're dealing with issues of addiction and mental illness and whatever else is going on in your life, that there's definitely hope. And while it seems very, very distant, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, you're a sort of shining example of that. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I've moved from one side of the courtroom to the other. So
yeah, it's great. Yeah. I love it. I love it. So let's go back a little bit in time, because I've read some stuff about you, and I think before we went live, I told you I'd read this article that was from October of 2016, and that doesn't really finish up the story, so we'll have you fill in the blanks, but it talks about, you know, your battle with addiction and just the crazy stuff you got up to.
Yeah, I definitely I suffer from substance use disorder, and I started using chemicals when I was about 14 years old, and by the age of 16 I had gotten wrapped up in the adult criminal justice system. And once I got tangled up in that, it was just a squirrel cage of, relapse, incarceration, one thing after another. And it compounded upon itself until, something changed.
So how did it all start? I mean, you're 14 years old. What is the first sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, a drug of choice? How did it all start?
I mean, I think everybody talks about marijuana as being a gateway drug. I don't believe that to be the case. I think alcohol is probably the greatest gateway drug in this country, although it's not treated as a drug. You know, we say constantly alcohol and drugs. Well, alcohol is a drug. And I think by separating the two, we kind of confuse the general population on what exactly that means. But alcohol was definitely my gateway drug. And
okay. So you start drinking. I mean, it's not, I mean, I know I think all kids are exposed to it a little bit. I mean, growing up, I had friends who smoked a lot of weed, and I don't know, maybe way back when I was a teenager, it certainly didn't have the potency it does now. But I don't want to say it's a rite of passage, but in some instances, it almost seems like it's so ingrained in our culture to drink and do other crazy stuff.
It is. I think this country really celebrates alcohol as opposed to talking about it realistically. Is the commercials, the advertising always portrays it to be some glamorous event or circumstance, and for many Americans that's just not the case, and it doesn't really shine a light of reality upon especially those that suffer from substance use disorder, which statistically makes up about 10% of our population.
Yeah, I did a little research not that long ago about lawyers and their likelihood to suffer from substance abuse disorders. We as a sort of profession are twice as likely as the sort of, average layperson is to suffer from something like that. And I don't know if it starts at an early age, but I think the long and short of it was there's such pressure as a lawyer, to always win for the client that, unless you have some other outlet, I mean, we're twice as likely, which is really quite frightening,
It really is. And, and on top of that, we're also, more prone to suicide, mental illness, a lot of the other issues that I think the Florida bar is finally starting to address. Although I don't think they really focus as much on substance use disorder as they should, because it is so prevalent. But be it as it may, it's progress nonetheless.
So you said you started at 14. By 16, you got yourself in trouble. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then I want to talk about how you managed to just turn the ship around.
Sure.
So 16, what happened? Because I read in the article you had all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, most of my incidents were directly substance use disorder related. So my first encounter with law enforcement at age of 16 was a DUI I received in Florida on spring break. I was charged as an adult. Once that hit, I moved from there, and I've had a variety of charges: DUIs, public intox, fighting. I had an incident with a firearm in Atlanta that but most of these incidents were a direct result of my drinking and or drug use.
Well, so where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, in a town just north of there, Alpharetta.
Okay, can you give us a little idea of what your family life was like when you were growing up?
My father was killed when I was an infant, and my mother remarried when I was about 7, had 2 more children. Alcoholism and addiction is very prevalent in my family. I like to say that biology loads the gun and environment pulls the trigger. I definitely think that was the case with me. I think I was predisposed to alcoholism from birth. And once I ingested alcohol, I had a different chemical reaction in my brain, and it was off to the races.
Yeah, sometimes the conversation I have with mums and dads, because who are calling about their kids, and a lot of the time there's sort of this dichotomy between the two parents. One wants to enable, and the other one wants to get the child into treatment. But the sort of misunderstanding I think a lot of people have, and I think it sort of attaches to the stigma that's been associated with the disease, is why don't they just stop? As if it's a choice.
Sure, and I think what we miss a lot of times in those families is alcoholism is a lot of times a family disease. So the individuals around the alcoholic or person suffering from substance use disorder is oftentimes just as sick as the individual needing the treatment, right? So it's important for those families to get educated about the disease of addiction, to learn what does and does not work in the family unit model, and to try and practice recovery along with that individual suffering while they go through their own recovery process.
Right. So, I mean, at some point you realize, you were really a really bright guy and we're going to go to law school. But, I mean, at 16, when you started getting in trouble, I mean, did you even think about what you might want to do with the rest of your life? Or were you just so focused on what was going on around you and the sort of...
No, I had no idea what I wanted to be.
No aspirations, never thought about it, never talked about it?
I mean, I think I had aspirations like all kids do. I want to be an astronaut, a pro football player, that kind of stuff. But as far as thinking about going into a career, no, I don't think so. Okay,
so you got in trouble. How long was sort of the craziness going on before I guess the light bulb went off?
I was in and out of the criminal justice system for 14 years before I finally, decided to, I moved to Mississippi, and I was placed in a position, I never even finished high school, and my education was kind of the only thing I didn't burn. I pretty much burned everything else down in my life, but I was given an opportunity to go to a community college in northeast Mississippi, and I was surrounded by some good men that were in recovery, and I just think it was this perfect storm of opportunities and education, coupled with recovery, and just a group of good, loving men who loved me until I could learn how to love myself, and taught me the skills I needed to kind of get better.
Right. At any time while you were sort of going through the criminal justice system, did you have access to treatment? Did they send you to treatment?
I had been to a couple of treatment centers. Went out through the criminal justice system. Mostly it's probation, fines, fees. I mean, it's let's face it, it's a revenue generator, right? I mean, it's a lot of these low-level drug and alcohol offenses are used to kind of fund the everyday expenses of the judicial system. So I think the money was oftentimes more important than the treatment I was receiving.
Yeah, I had John Hewlick on the show. If you know John, he's the Palm Beach County drug czar. Really good guy, great guy. and really trying to make a difference. And I know he has a daughter who's in recovery, and he really opened my eyes to something that I never really thought of, because before that I was like, well, we got to make treatment available to everybody. That's the key. That's the key. That's the key. And he said, well, that's great. We make treatment available to everybody, but then what do you do afterwards, right? I mean, people need jobs. They need a place to live. They need a support system. They need a sponsor. I mean, they need all these other things that go along with keeping somebody in recovery. And I was like, wow, I never really thought about that. But he's right. I mean, if somebody is going to be homeless or jobless and after they get clean, I mean, their chances of staying clean are very, very slim.
Yeah, I really like John a lot. I had the opportunity to sit down with him and discuss possibly working on a project here in Palm Beach County. And we founded a nonprofit in Mississippi called Southern Recovery Advocacy, and it goes directly to what you're speaking about, right? I mean, all the collateral consequences associated with the criminal justice system when someone is arrested, and let's face it, 60 to 80% of the people behind bars have got substance use disorder.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
So we're taking away the very resources that these individuals need, and what Southern Recovery Advocacy aims to do is to give those resources back. So our pillars are recovery, education, employment, housing, life skills. All the things that the criminal justice system removes is what we're trying to give back to make these people successful members of the community.
Yeah, at least here in Florida, I mean, if you look at the legislative mandate in our criminal code, I mean, they make no bones about the fact here we punish first and rehabilitate second. And I think, frankly, that's just arse backwards. It really
Correct.
is. We spend all this money to house people and incarcerate them, and I mean, we could be putting them in treatment and keeping them out of the system, but we don't do that.
Right, and if we're thinking about it logically, 90% of the people behind bars are coming home. Do you want them coming home better off or worse off than when they went in? And a lot of times, you really just send them to crime college.
Yeah, no doubt. So you go through the system. You went to Mississippi. You were finally in the environment that I guess helped you to sort of get clean and stay clean. So at what point do you say, I'm going to be a lawyer? I mean, how'd that happen?
I was listening. I was listening to a federal judge speak at the community college on, I believe it was Constitution Day, and he was talking about virtue in the law and character and integrity and philosophy behind what is law. And he was also an alumni of that community college, and at that moment, I was like, I think I want to go to law school. So I went and spoke with one of the the counselors there at the school, and it was actually my academic advisor, and I told him my plan. I was like, I'm going to law school. And they said, well, that's great, that's a good plan, son, but you probably should have a plan B, right? And that's kind of what they told me. But in a weird twist of fate, I ended up interning for that federal judge in Oxford, Mississippi, while I was in law school. So it's really pretty neat set of circumstances.
So did you end up finishing your undergrad at a local community college there?
No, I went to community college for the first 2 years. I received a full scholarship to Ole Miss, and I decided to stay at Ole Miss for my law degree. How'd you end up getting a full scholarship? Because, I mean, they only give scholarships to either really good athletes or really smart people. Well, they have a scholarship in Mississippi called the Lucky Day Scholarship, and they give it out to 25 individuals who come from impoverished backgrounds. They don't have a lot of resources, and they can measure up academically. And yeah, I did have some academic success. I met some people in recovery that worked for the Honors College at Ole Miss and helped me apply for some of these scholarships and opportunities, and I got them. And as a result, I ended up getting into the Honors College and writing my honors thesis on rehabilitation versus incarceration for substance use offenders.
That's pretty impressive. So you ended up staying at Ole Miss. You went through law school, and I read, in this article, there was some mention of a judge. I think she was in Mississippi, and she made a statement to you. I see something in you, son.
No, that was a judge in Atlanta.
Was it Atlanta? Okay.
I had been arrested for firing a weapon under the influence, and I was charged with several dozen felonies. And I went to first appearance. I wasn't represented. I was disheveled. I was still intoxicated. And she made that statement to me, and I don't think I even understood at the time what was being done for me, but she really saved my life. And as I reflect back upon that now, I see the opportunity that we have as lawyers and judges and people as advocates, right? I mean, we have the opportunity to literally change lives. And that's one of those things that I'm going to be eternally grateful for, because she gave me an opportunity that...
Did you ever see that, Judge, since you became a member of the bar?
I have not. That would be nice, though.
That'd be pretty cool, right? So you go through law school. Did you have any idea in what arena you wanted to practice in?
I knew I wanted to do criminal defense. Because of that, I also knew that I wanted to do something involved with law and policy regarding substance use disorder and how we're treating it. You know, we pretty much have gone from a system of care to a system of cages here, and we're treating it as a criminal issue when really it needs to be addressed as a public health issue. And so that's going to be a lot of the focus on our work, and that's a lot of the focus that we're doing here at Romano Law Group and the Sober Home Task Force, and some of the things we're working on here.
Yeah, so maybe talk about the process of getting approved to be a member of the bar, because I know when I went through law school, I mean, just getting approved was a 9-month process, and I really, on the fact that I came from England, I mean, I had no history. I mean, probably hadn't had a parking ticket in God only knows how long. So I mean, they must have absolutely busted your chops over this stuff.
They really did. It was a grueling process. I knew that. And I knew there was no guarantee. When I applied to law school, they said, there's a good chance you'll never practice law. And I was like, well, what choice do I have? I've got to roll the dice. And I did that. I started immediately when I got into law school with the character and fitness process with the state of Florida. I knew I wanted to come to Palm Beach County because I believe this to be the epicenter of not only just criminal justice reform, but also the entire recovery industry and the bad actors in that, policy, so on and so forth. And really, this is just where I wanted to be involved with some of the best and the brightest in the industry. So I started that process, and I just got admitted a little less than a year ago.
How long did it take them to finish the whole screening process?
Several years. Almost 3 years.
That's unbelievable.
I had to go for several hearings and amend the application multiple times. I mean, it was very grueling. And then to be in front of that panel, in Miami, it was very emotional, to say the least.
Did they tell you, on the spot, they said, yeah, we're going to approve you, or did they?
No, I think I was fortunate. Some of the committee members had family members in recovery. So I think they understood a little bit more than somebody maybe who didn't. But they were able to speak the language of recovery to me, and I think they knew that I was sincere when I told them what my intentions were.
Right? Did you have to have a lawyer to do all that stuff for you?
No, I had no lawyer.
You did it yourself?
They wanted $10,000. I didn't have $10,000.
Wow! So your first client is yourself.
It's been several times.
I love it. So, I mean, for the 3 years where you're trying to get approved, what are you doing? How are you spending your time?
I mean, I really buckled down in law school. Being sober and back in higher education, it was, I think puts you at an advantage because you're not distracted by the partying and the other things that go along with a lot of the things that happen on university campuses. I founded Southern Recovery Advocacy while I was in law school. I was appointed to the governor's opiate task force with the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, drafting legislation to help with the opiate epidemic, another issue that we're working on here at Romano. We represent 12 municipalities in the state of Florida in the opiate epidemic. I was also able to write and be published in one of the top criminal law journals in the country regarding drug policy reform and what we need to do as a nation to kind of start moving the ball forward for those in recovery and the people that we're losing on a daily basis to not just the criminal justice system, but the grave, because we can't provide the right kind of resources necessary.
Right. So when did you start with Romano?
I started with them about 4 months ago, October of 18. Susan Ramsey is a member of the Sober Home Task Force here in West Palm. I was having lunch with Dave Ehrenberg last week. We were talking about her and some of the things we've been trying to do with that task force. And she's really just kind of a little evil genius about how she's constructed some of these suits against some of the actors that have been federally indicted here in Palm Beach County, like Kenny Chapman and others that have really they were predators upon those needing recovery
100%.
as opposed to providing the help. So she came and talked to me. I was fortunate. She's actually my mentor for the Florida bar as well. So that's how I met her, and she asked me to come here and work, and I met John, and I love John, and been here ever since.
I haven't met him, but I hear he's a fine lawyer. So
He's a great guy.
and Susan knows me. So, wow. So what kind of law are you practicing? Are you doing this litigation? Are you involved? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, mainly we're doing, what I'm focusing on is the sober home litigation, right? So you've had the people that are criminally indicted, but what happens in a criminal investigation is you're going to have people that are given leniency or able to get off because they agree to testify against other individuals. And what we're trying to do is hold everybody accountable. We're representing families that have lost loved ones to these sober homes, a lot of wrongful death cases, medical malpractice. There's a lot of sexual predatory behavior at a lot of these institutions, so sexual assault, battery within some of these fraudulent treatment centers. As you know, there's hundreds of millions of dollars in Medicaid fraud between the insurance companies and the drug testing facilities, as well as the sober homes and the treatment centers. I mean, it was all just kind of running together there, and we're trying to kind of seek those people out and hold them accountable and try and get some measure of justice for these families. And then on top of that, we're doing the opiate litigation, like I said, for
Is that the litigation where you're suing Big Pharma on behalf of, say, the city of Delray or something like that?
Correct. Several municipalities throughout the state, Seminole Nation. And all this is kind of being channeled through the multi-district litigation in Ohio. And John, and that's been his bread and butter for years. He is probably one of the best mass torts and liability, lawyers in the country. And I just feel fortunate to be able to learn from him and kind of watch what he's doing in this process.
Right. So I know you said that you had lunch with Dave Ehrenberg. I had lunch with him. Actually, I had lunch with him on election day and Al Johnson. And Al and I were in county court together many years ago. And I don't know if I've ever seen Dave that excited because it was election day. I mean, God bless him. He just could not sit still.
I don't know if he ever sits still.
And maybe that's what it is. Dave just can't sit still. He's just such a busy guy. But I think this task force really done a bang up job. I mean, I just know from the work that we do, it seems like either the bad treatment centers, they've either been arrested or they've just gone out of business.
Correct.
I mean, how do you see things going? I mean, from your perspective,
Well, we're national leaders, right? I mean, the Sober Home Task Force here is setting the stage for what's going to be a national movement. I mean, you're going to see as we enact these patient brokering laws and enforce them here in South Florida, it's really serving as a model for the rest of the country, because these treatment centers aren't going away. They're just moving to other states that don't have patient brokering laws, right? I mean, this is not, something that's unique to Florida. There's other states, and I know California's seeing a lot of problems right now. Texas, another one. I mean, so we're trying to lead the way here and show people how and what to expect from a lot of these bad players.
Right. Are you sponsoring anybody? I mean, do you work with some of the folks that are trying to get clean and stay clean?
I do. I work with individuals as much as I can, and I still work with a couple guys in Mississippi, and we're real close. And it's part of my day-to-day living as well. It's important for me to stay in touch with where I came from.
Right. So So what's the thing that you do that's like your pace, your place of peace? I mean, I exercise and stuff, but there's one thing I do. I mean, I've been doing martial arts for years, but that's the only thing I do where I can completely shut down. I don't even think I'm shutting down when I sleep, because I routinely wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning because I just can't sleep. But do you have something that you do that really just helps to keep you sane? Because practice of law can be, it's stressful.
It is. It is. I mean, I definitely have my morning rituals that I go through on a daily basis, and I try to read as much as I can on philosophy and spirituality and a lot of those things. And for me too, it's exercise. I enjoy running. My girlfriend's been trying to get me into yoga, which I'm very ungraceful at that. But
I hear you on that one.
At least trying. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to talk about one other thing, and then I'm going to let you go because I know you're a busy guy. But this whole thing with this whole mindset here, especially here in Florida, maybe you sort of talked about it before with the idea of we incarcerate people before we rehabilitate them. What do you think that's all about, and do you think it's going to change?
Well, I mean, that's a very, very complicated question. I think there is so many moving parts associated with that. The corporatization of the prison industrial complex has really fed, and it's incentivized the incarceration of individuals. I talked about this a lot in some of the work I've done. Is, we've got publicly traded corporations, prison corporations, that are traded on Wall Street, that are guaranteeing with their contracts certain levels of incarceration. And if you take somebody with substance use disorder, you put them in a cage, you don't give them treatment, and then you release them, you're almost guaranteed for repeat business, right? If it's a crime and you're locking them up for having substance use disorder, it's a great business model, but it's killing people.
Yeah, terrible. So I'm going to go back to the litigation for a second, because when the folks see this, we might get some parents, some mums and dads who've lost kids. So in terms of if they want to find out if they qualify for any of this, litigation, how do they get in touch with you guys? Do they call you? They call Susan? How's that work?
Yeah, I mean, just all they got to do is Google Romano Law Group and give us a call. We'll be happy to take a look at their case.
What's the website there for Romano? I can look it up, but
I believe it's RomanoLawGroup.com. I mean, 1 second, I can tell you.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. We might get you a case or two here. You never know.
Well, that'd be great. Yeah, it's RomanoLawGroup.com. That's not what it's about, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's we're all about.
Look, you can't bring a loved one back, but maybe get a little closure for a family.
Not just that, but it does, and to hold people accountable and to make the people that really have no voices feel like they've been heard. I'm going to Tina Barbuto's sentencing on Thursday, and I'm going with a mother from Pennsylvania who's flying down. It was part of the Kenny Chapman scheme, and she wants to be heard. She's going to get in front of that judge and say, look, this is what happened to my child, and you need to hear this before you impose sentence. And that's what it's about. It's about giving a voice to the people that normally wouldn't be heard.
I love it. Are they sending you to court at all over there?
Yeah, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to be kind of a presence. I won't be doing anything, but yeah, I'll be there for her.
All right, I love it. Listen, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. It's one of the most unbelievable stories I've heard, and I know when I read that you'd gotten admitted. I mean, I was thrilled for you and proud of you. I mean, I don't know, whatever else you can say, to as one guy to another, that you're just excited for him, because I mean, I think that it's very inspirational. It really is. I mean, you're a miracle, and sounds like you're going to be one hell of a lawyer too.
Well, Mark, I really appreciate it. I know we've been talking for several years, and it was nice to finally meet you in county court, and I appreciate all the work
Thanks.
You do, because it's desperately needed, and we need more advocates such as yourself.
All right, so I'm going to give out my details. Actually, what's the phone number there at Romano?
It's 561-533-6700.
Okay, and for the folks that are going to be watching this live, if they just want to talk to me, or they want to talk to you, Joshua, they can reach us. We're on We're on Facebook Live on the Mark G. Astor Facebook page, on the Drug and Alcohol Attorneys Facebook page, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. I'm trying to think of all the other places that they have me. Or they can just, I'm all over the place. Or they can just go to drugandalcoholattorneys.com, or they can email me at mark@drugandalcoholattorneys.com, or they can just call us 561-419-6095. Thanks, Joshua, for coming on.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate you having me.
You're welcome, my brother. Good to talk to you. And listen, when we get done with this, let's make a plan to get together, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks very much.